Right, my name's Lisa-Visco. I am a pole dancer, over 50, just turned 51.
Yeah.
My previous, or my background, I guess, is in dance predominantly. I was a ballet dancer as a younger woman. And then I got into competitive bodybuilding
Mm.
for a short period of time. This is a long time ago, but competitive bodybuilding. So that kind of led into like a lifelong pursuit of fitness. Like I stayed in fitness after bodybuilding. I did stop dancing for a brief period of time, but had a hard time kind of re-entering
Mm.
at a certain point. But I also trained in yoga and subsequently Pilates. So it's been a lifelong
Yeah, journey.
journey
Yeah.
of fitness. Yeah, that
So
brought me to pole.
when you say it was hard for you to get back into dance, what was hard about that?
I think probably I really felt like I didn't have a place anymore. At that time too. So I'm 51. So we're talking about 30 years ago. It was um, younger dancers were a little bit more prevalent. It wasn't as inclusive as it is now. I mean, there was definitely a type that they liked, a body type. It was just a different environment. I love what dance is now. It's
Mm.
so much more open to just body types and styles, and it's just so different than when I was a sorry
Yeah.
about my dog. It was so different than when I was a dancer. But so when I tried to get back in, I just didn't fit the mold. Once I got into my early 20s, it was kind of hard. I was a classically trained ballet dancer. So then I tried to get into like theater and different types of dance that would be a little bit more open. And I just didn't have the same kind of passion for it
Right.
than I did ballet. So I pretty much stayed away from it then until pole dancing. Then
Yeah.
I found a way back in that didn't care how old I was. It was
That's
great.
that's exactly. I mean, I have a similar story with gymnastics. Same thing. Like when you're 20 something, you can't go back and compete at level 8 with a bunch of 15-year-olds. That's
Yeah,
just it doesn't that's not how
yeah,
it works. So when, you can apply what you have trained for all your life to a different sport, and that being pole or aerial, it's just an incredible feeling, and that's kind of like really what makes you just stick to that sport. So how many years have you been pole dancing now?
almost 8. So I just shy of my 43rd birthday did I start.
And how are you,
So
like, introduced to it? Like, did you just decide you wanted to take a class, or did somebody bring you along?
you know what? One day a girlfriend of mine called me and she's like, "Do you know there's a pole dance studio that's like 2 miles from your house?" Because at the time it was.
Mm.
And so I was looking to do something different. I had a very strong yoga practice, but I also taught a lot. I was teaching like 50 yoga classes a week, but no lie, about 50 classes a week.
Whoa.
And so my yoga practice became kind of not something I enjoyed doing like I still practiced on my own, but it wasn't giving me the same kind of excitement I don't know if excitement's the right word, but it just
Yeah,
really wasn't doing it for me in terms of,
right.
and I really did want to do something just for me. I think my yoga practice started to feel like something I was doing for my students more than I was doing for me.
Mm.
Um, and so I went to a pole dancing class and I actually went with a girlfriend and she absolutely hated it. And I was like 10 minutes into it and I was like, I love this and I'm never leaving. Because to me, it was the embodiment of everything I've ever done. It was dance. It was strong because I never really left the gym. I always consistently went to a gym and weight trained. I wasn't as big and as strong as I was when I was a competitive bodybuilder, but I was strong when I started pole dancing. So I could invert like the first time I went to class,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
like, I didn't know what I was doing, but I could do things. But it was another, like, all of a sudden I could dance again. But it was like I said, it was like the embodiment of everything I've done: yoga, Pilates, weight training,
Right.
ballet, it was just kind of like everything all in one spot. It was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, that's totally the same thing. I went with a friend. She was like, "Nah, I'm not about this," and I was like, "Yes, this is it."
Yeah, I mean, she was so funny. She's like, "I hate the way my skin looks on the pole." I'm like, "What?" I mean, it's like, but I absolutely love it. And I took like a small, of course, I don't do anything small. So and I started taking classes like every day.
Mm.
And the owner to the studio, really great lady, she asked me to start teaching Pilates there. So I started teaching like within just a couple weeks of being there.
Whoa.
Not pole, but
Yeah.
Pilates and like bar class and stuff like that. And I competed my first year, full year of training. I started competing. I just couldn't do it small. I just fell in love with
Yeah.
it, and I just kept going. So I competed for a couple of years. I got a little burned out, and I took a little
Yeah.
time off. And now I came back about a year ago. So I'm just kind of getting my feet back underneath me. So
How long did it take? Because I have the same thing. This is so funny. It's just like a parallel. So like when you compete and you're doing competition practice and you get burned out, how long did you take off to kind of like recenter and like be able to have the fun with pole again?
it took me it wasn't a year. It was a good like 6 months or so until for me, I think the competition, like, so of course, because of my age, I was competing in like masters division competitions, and there aren't a lot of them. There aren't a lot of competitions that offered master level comp. So you had to submit a video, you got chosen for the competition. They were always involved traveling because they were never local. I absolutely loved that. I met people from all over the world. I loved competing, but I started to put an incredible amount of pressure on myself because the very first competition I competed in was a national competition, because again, there weren't a lot of
Mm.
competitions for master levels competitors.
Mhm.
And I placed second. And I kind of wish in some ways I wouldn't have placed in that competition, because after that, like, nobody knew me going in there. So it was kind of just like I was a surprise.
Mhm. Yep.
And then after that, um, people started like, knowing who you were. And I never didn't want to not place. If I didn't place, I felt like I failed, and it, I did it to myself. I just kept pushing myself and pushing myself. And it got to the point, like, I think the last competition I was in, I actually fell.
Mm.
And I really, really wasn't even prepared as well as I usually was. And I was devastated. And I was just like, no, I need to stop putting so much pressure on myself, because it's like, for what? I'm supposed to be having fun.
Right.
So I took a little time off, and I actually started training with a contortion trainer,
Ah, uh-huh.
and I loved it. I love her, and she's wonderful. And um, she helped me fix some things like that was like kind of wrong with my body too, which was really
Mm.
good. She comes from a place of real strength, active flexibility and strength, that through yoga and stuff, I did a lot more passive work.
Yep.
And I really just started enjoying that and focusing on that. So when I came back to pole,
Yeah.
I I had a different body.
Right. Now you're
I
all
wasn't as strong in some ways. Like, in some ways, I lost a little strength. So I'm just kind of getting that back.
right.
But my active flexibility is so much better than it was. So it's kind of cool to be a little bit better than I was at 51 than I was at 48. That's kind of cool.
Right. Yeah.
But now, of course, I'm competing again
Right.
because I can't stay away from it. But it's local, and
Yeah.
it's in Philadelphia, so I don't have to travel. And for the first time ever, I'm not competing against people my age.
Oh, when is this competition?
At the end of June.
Okay, you're almost there.
But I know I went into like an open level
Okay.
competition, and really kind of challenging and pushing myself, but in a good way. I feel good about it. I don't
Yeah.
feel like weirdly pressured about it at all, to tell you the truth. You
Good.
know,
I think
yeah,
that's a
we'll
very
see.
common thing for athletes in general. Like, I think the last episode we were talking with Kelsey Heenan about like perfectionism and
Yeah.
how just being an athlete, like, one, you got the pressure on yourself because you have these high standards for yourself, but it can also affect you in so many different areas of your life. So just kind of you as a person, how do you feel like, do you feel like you add pressure to yourself in other situations in life? Like, how does the athlete in you kind of trickle into the other areas of your life?
Honestly, I don't think that it has, in a lot of ways, because I'm a parent, so I have 3 older children.
Mhm.
And I think in some ways it's made me, I'm a much more patient parent
Mm.
because of of how hard I can be on myself at times, and I know that, and I don't want my children to be that way in a lot of ways. I want them to be more comfortable with themselves, like not work hard and push themselves, but it's actually helped me find a little balance. Like I can see, where maybe like I didn't want that to carry into being a parent, like trying to be the perfect parent or have the perfect kids. Even, my kids will do this, my kids will do that. Like it actually made me a little bit more relaxed because it even as a dancer, it was a bit of a detriment. I was so hard on myself that I often didn't take breaks. I didn't eat
Mm.
well. And when I was a dancer, it was my food was really a problem. I didn't take care of myself in that way.
Right.
Um, it's actually made me see a lot of how like I can really kind of just beat myself up. And so it's in terms of other aspects of my life, I've been able to kind of find a little bit more balance, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know,
That's
so
I wonder if that's also just something that changes, like you said, when you become a parent, because you see,
yeah.
and I wonder if any of our listeners can relate to that. And if you do, definitely share your thoughts. And I wanted to touch on something else as well. You mentioned when you were a dancer, like your eating was the issue, and when I was a gymnast, like it was not. I didn't. No,
Yeah.
it was just like you just because you burn it off too, so you're just not like you're not consciously aware of how you're feeling your body.
Mhm.
So how important or like what role does nutrition play for
It's huge for
us?
me now. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's huge for me now. Yeah. So as a ballet dancer, and as a young ballet dancer too, in an George Balanchine area where dancers were like tall and 80 pounds,
Mm-hmm.
um, I didn't eat very much so that I wasn't tall, but I was small.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of fit that other more like wafy kind of mold.
Mm-hmm.
So there was the pressure to remain that way. So, I was you're 13, 14, 15, it's easy. 16, 17, 18, not so easy. Because your body changes, you go through puberty, things
Yeah.
start changing.
Yeah.
I could always eat whatever I wanted when I was a young girl and not really care about it until I got to be around 16 or 17. And I remember I was like 90 pounds and I was dancing. I was getting ready actually to go and dance with another company. And the artistic director of the company that I was dancing with at the time had said to me, she's like, you might want to lose a couple pounds before I mean, a dance teacher would never say that to anybody now.
Yeah.
You
Right.
might want to lose a couple pounds before you go away. And I was like I said, maybe 90, 94 pounds or so. Um, and then, so I did, I lost a couple, I just stopped eating really, it's like horrible, but you just cut back on, you don't know enough. Like you cut back on calories at first.
Mm.
But when I started losing the weight, I started getting noticed and I started getting parts. And so,
Mm.
um,
Mm.
but then I couldn't stop because then you were kind of afraid of, well, if I
What
gain a
about
pound, I
right?
lose a,
Yeah.
not understanding that you're eating for fuel, your body burns a certain amount of calories anyway. There wasn't that same concept of nutrition. No one talked to me about nutrition. Suddenly you weigh 75 pounds. You know what I'm saying? And your intention was never to weigh 75 pounds. It was just to not lose your edge.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So, and
Different.
it would be like, and the food I ate was horrible. It would be like a Snickers bar or like a bowl of cereal in the morning or something like that.
Mm.
And that completely changed actually when I actually joined a gym. So I was really thin. I weighed 80 pounds when I graduated high school.
Mm.
And my legs were starting to lose strength. So I joined a gym to actually get stronger. And that's when I started getting interested in like weightlifting and
Mm.
so that whole changed my perception of nutrition because when you're weightlifting and bodybuilding, your nutrition plays like such a huge role. And I
Right.
started to understand really how important food was, and not just food, but good nutrition, you know?
Yeah.
So I learned a lot through like the supplements that I was taking when I was a bodybuilder. I take many of the same ones now, just vegan supplements because I'm vegan now. But um, you know, understanding that protein and carbohydrates and what's good and what's not, and you know, just the amino acids, and you know, if I exert myself in a certain way, I have to do this, this, and this. And as I've gotten older, it's absolutely crucial for recovery. I mean, if I don't eat well, I don't recover. I don't recover well. Like, I know that I have to eat well. I have to take care of myself. I have to hydrate. I have to get enough protein. And as a vegan, that's, you know, something I really have to be mindful of. But
Mm.
um, if I'm not, supplements really do help me now at this point when I'm training as hard as I am. But like, I take a hydrating amino. It's just I put a powder in a liquid. It's a vegan supplement, but that helps. A protein powder if I feel like I'm really kind of missing a little. But um, if I didn't eat well, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. I know that for sure.
Wow. So I have a couple things from there. Is like, okay, I mean, as a vegan, how are you making sure that you're getting, you know, your full everything that your body needs and training and fueling yourself adequately for how you
So
train?
I do feel like your body tells you, like, I'll crave certain things. So if I'm not, but at this point, I pretty much know how I have to eat,
Yeah.
or, you know, I pretty much know what I have to do
Right.
to have the energy, to have the strength to, but for me, it's muscle soreness. If I don't eat well, like, it's one
Mm.
thing to be sore, you know, you train
Right.
hard. Um, but inflammation and muscle soreness are the hardest things for me. Like, if I don't eat well, I start noticing that my joints start hurting.
Yeah.
It takes me longer to recover in between my workouts. So I eat, for the most part, like low inflammatory foods. For the most part, like, I try and eat things that will help with that. I do take turmeric, and like a high dose of turmeric every day, um, which does help. I try and stay away from a lot of like over the counter anti-inflammatories, only because it's
Mm.
not good to take them every day. But I do feel like you can eat what
Right.
you need to help with inflammation.
Yeah.
So um, I do. And I feel like the older you get, the more important that becomes. I think it's important for everybody. I mean, if I knew what I knew as a young girl, maybe I'd still be dancing, you know, I don't know,
Mhm.
but you don't, you know, but nutrition plays, like, I can't eat. It's different. Like, I see some of these younger girls making me crap and come into the studio and hardly warm up and do, like, I can't do that.
Right.
Not me. I can't drink. I can't do, I have to eat and come in and warm up for at least an hour. I like, before I practice, I have to warm up at least an hour
Wow.
before I practice on the pole. So it's a long workout. So I need to make sure that I'm eating well to accommodate that. So
Exactly. And on the topic of just kind of like prepping and recovering, I know recovery is very, very, very important. So you've got the fuel aspect, um, and you mentioned, you know, contortion training, so like active flexibility. So how does active flexibility help you kind of just sustain, prevent injury, because you train a lot, so you want to make
it's been
sure that you're
awesome.
recovering. And there's
Yeah.
no such thing as like overtraining; it's under recovering. So,
Hmm.
what role does that active flexibility play for you?
It's been huge for my shoulders, I have
And
to say, because especially as an aerialist, if you're pulling any kind of aerial work, lyra straps,
yeah,
that you are doing a lot of overhead pulling or grabbing, spinning with one arm,
yeah,
um, you need mobility in your shoulders to be able to do certain pull moves, and you just have to. But you also have to have the strength. And so I don't do I do zero passive shoulder flexibility work. All the flexibility work that I do is through strength. So I don't do weight assisted flexibility work. Like, I would never put like a dumbbell in my hand and have it pull my shoulders back or something like that.
mm-hmm.
You know, it's been huge for my shoulders. I actually tore my rotator a few years ago, before I started training with a contortion trainer and understanding active flexibility, because I was
Right.
working on a needle scale and the Phoenix. And if you know what the Phoenix is, that one arm static spin.
Mhm.
And I was also doing all this shoulder rotation working on my needle scale, and I ended up with a rotator tear.
Mm.
So it's been it's been crucial for me to do, like, not, I don't do any passive stretching. It's all dynamic for the most part for my upper body.
Wow.
I do a lot of bridge work. A lot of my back bends involves holding bridges for
Oh,
extended periods of time.
oh, oh man. Yeah, I
You
know.
know, that keep pushing up, that push, up
Yeah.
through the shoulders, and handstand work. I do a lot of handstand work to help with my shoulders too. It helps a lot. Um, and I do shoulder stretches. They're just not passive.
Right.
It's
Frozen
just
games.
active work. Hmm.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tore my labrum, I think, a few years ago. A lot of us do. We end up having shoulder
Yeah.
stuff. And that's what took me out for a little while. And then I came back and I was not as strong. I did some contortion as well, and like the active flexibility is so important. I've been working on my bridges too. I'm like, oh my god, 30 seconds, okay, I'm done.
I
So it's like
know. Yeah.
I need to push back to that uncomfortable place, but that's also where it's helpful to have a coach and to have a
Yeah.
purpose. Remember your why. So for you, what is your why? Like why be fit? Why be in shape? Why do this?
Because I love it. And I don't think I really need to have any other reason, to be honest. Like I had somebody ask me this not too long about what motivates me, and like I don't really need motivation. I don't. Like I very rarely need to give myself pep talks to practice, or to train. I like competing is fine. I actually have a little stage fright at my age now, so like that's a little something. But I love the work.
Yeah.
I love having goals. I love setting goals. I like training. I like setting very like week to week goals. I enjoy the work. I totally do it because I love it. And I think it's important that people find something that they do just purely because they love doing it. And I tell my kids that too. Like maybe it is the career you choose to, whatever you choose to be when you grow up or whatever, whatever.
Yeah.
But you have to have something that you just love to do for the pure enjoyment of doing it. And that it's not because I need to prove something to somebody or to myself, or that, and I do love the fact that I'm older, and I do know that that's inspiring. I do appreciate that. Um, but and I guess in some ways I do hope to inspire people to, it's not just pole, it's anything that you want to do that you just find joy in doing. Because I think like right away you do something and people know if you're going to profit from it. Like, are you going to make money from it? Are you going to do this? It's like, no, like, why do I have to? Like, why can't I just love doing something?
Right.
It's just, so that's really why.
That's that's amazing.
Really
And
why.
that's so much of what I try and explain to people is if you are working out because you feel like you have to, or because you ate something and you're trying to burn it off,
Yeah.
like that's not sustainable. There's nothing that's pulling you to that. And if you don't like it, you're not going to do it. We avoid discomfort and pain, and we
Yeah.
don't do that. So we have to find something that clicks with us, that works for us, something that we enjoy, we look forward to, because then we're going to do more of it, we're going to see more results, we're going to keep the
Yeah.
motivation, we're going to keep going.
Yeah. And I
So
love, yeah. And I love the fact that, you know, I can be better with age, because I don't buy into at all that you have to stop something in doing something that you love because you just get too old. Like I don't buy it.
yeah,
I'm not saying that I'm going to be, someone who like beat someone who's 25. That's not my goal. But my
yeah.
goal is to just keep improving. And
Hmm.
then, and the day I stop improving, okay, maybe I'll just be like, all right, it's time to hang it up. I'm like, but right now, like, I love the fact that my needle scale looks totally different now than it did when I was 45. Like, I do will post a before and after picture sometimes, like this was then, and not because I want to be like, look what I did, but I want to say this is possible. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? Like, you don't have to stop doing what you love doing because of a number. You can just keep going and just don't buy into the hype. Just keep doing the work,
Yeah.
showing up, you
uh,
know?
I love that. So what is your last two kind of like summary questions? What is your advice to somebody who wants to find, their purpose, or can't figure out something that sticks, or they don't know what they like? What's your advice to them if they want to have a purpose and they want to see results?
I would say not stop trying to find something, you know, and to try not to have, I know this is hard, this is really hard, but expectations, like, you
Mm.
know, um, I have a son that can do all kinds of things, like he can write, he can draw, he can paint. And what he's focusing his like career intentions aren't really like his strongest things. Like, like, but he's doing it just because he loves it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to keep fostering that, but I just think, sooner or later, you're going to find something that you enjoy doing,
Right.
whether it's like I was just talking to this young girl, she's like 20 some odd years old. She's been in college and she said all her life she's loved baking. And she's like, why didn't I just go to culinary school? And now she's going to culinary school in Chicago. And it's never one of those things where it's like, it's ever too late. And that's what I want to, like, that's, I think what I really want to tell people is I've done 50 million things. I have had a couple different careers. I've done so many different things, you can constantly reinvent yourself.
Yeah,
You can constantly have fun. Your life is your life.
it is.
That's it. You just got to stop thinking that you have to live it one certain way. Just keep living.
And the fear of failure or the fear of something else is most often what holds people back.
Yeah, there's really failure to me is just I don't even know if I think about it very much,
Your focus is elsewhere.
failing. It's okay. Like I might go in this comp and get blown out, not prepare, not even place, and wouldn't necessarily see it as a failure if I felt good about it. So it's kind of like, yeah, we can get really get into our heads about failing. I don't really know what that means. You just have to keep, if failing, sometimes my biggest failures have turned into the best things that I've ever done in my life.
Wow.
It's led me to something else that was even better. I mean, I know that sounds so corny or so cliche, but it's just true. It's just true. You just have to, I guess one of the things I really just want to show my kids through my pole journey is that, you absolutely can be 51 and still absolutely 100% enjoy your life. That it doesn't have to be all about everybody else. Like they're very important to me and they know that. And I'm like, I drop everything to help them. But they also know I have my own thing. And I think that's important, that I've maintained my own identity and still been their mom,
Yeah.
And I want them to see that. They don't have to lose themselves to please other people. They can have their own life and still have good relationships, have good careers, and stay true to themselves. And you can have 50 million different tries, over and over and over again. It's just never too late.
I love that. And I also wanted to add on to that, when you were starting your sentence about failure, trying to remember where I was going with this was, if your fear of failure is holding you back so much, the failure is what you need to lean into. And I think, like you're saying, you're just not focused on that.
Yeah.
That's what keeps you happy.
Yeah. It's almost a little bit like, this sounds like so right now, like manifesting, like thing, but if you're going to focus on failing, guess what? You're going to fail, and that's why I say do something because you love it and not because you have the expectation of it taking you here, 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 or here. Just do it because you enjoy it. And then I don't see that there's any way that you could fail if you were loving what you were doing or enjoying what you were doing,
And failing is like not trying.
Exactly. Or just kind of being like, well, you know what, I'm too old, or I'm too heavy, or I'm too this, I'm too that, and I can't do this. It's never true. There's always room, and you can always do what you want to do. That's it.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Last thing, and we ask this to every guest who comes on, is, to you, what does it mean to train like a gymnast?
Be consistent. I think consistency is one of the most important things. Be consistent. Consistency in your training, consistency in your thinking, consistency in your belief. And I guess consistency and being dedicated would probably be the two words that would come to my mind. Persevere. And you know, I mean, there is room for having fun and kind of it's like freestyling a little bit, like, you know, but consistency to me is the most important. Training consistently. So when I think of a gymnast, a dancer, anyone who gets to a certain level, you have to know that they showed up every morning at 3 a.m. before the before the studio opened. You know,
Yeah.
they don't miss practice, and they don't skip because they want to go out. I hate to say this, but hanging out with friends, or, you know, they're there, they're showing up and they're doing the work. So consistency to me is the most important.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. It's so true. That's how you.
Because people ask me about, they'll come to me all the time about flexibility. I'll have flexibility questions constantly. First of all, I was not born flexible, and that drives me crazy when people say that. I'm not lucky to be flexible. I work my ass off to be flexible.
Yeah.
But I'm consistent. And that's what I tell them. It's consistency like everything else. I practice, and I practice. But again, I practice because I enjoy it. So if it's a labor, like, to practice, then rethink it. Maybe it's not really something you want to do, but consistency is just the key in anything. Just be consistent.
That's such a perfect ending. Oh, I love it.
I'm so glad. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I love that you were able to share your story, and I hope that it helps our listeners and that it can start some conversations and some thought processes. So if you want to go ahead and just sign off with where people can find you, if anybody has any other questions.
Okay. Thank you so much for listening. I welcome anybody's questions or input, for that matter. You can reach me on social media, predominantly on Instagram at Lisa Rostelli-Visco. Is my Instagram handle. I am on Facebook, but that's really just kind of like family stuff. But the Instagram account is where you want to be. And also through email, lisaannvisco@yahoo.com.
Perfect. Well, I thank you again.
Thank you, Danielle.